Welcome to TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight. The purpose of this podcast is to provide you with a candid conversation about our energy needs, our energy security, and your energy future. Texas oil and natural gas have made our nation the world's energy leader, constantly innovating and investing to fuel the economy, protect the environment, and power the world. This industry is fast-paced, high-tech, and essential to improving modern life. And we're here to talk about it. You're listening to TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us for TXOGA Talks, where energy does meet insight. I'm glad to be partnering again today with Shana Joyce, Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs for TXOGA.
Always happy to be here.
Shana, we've got a lot to talk about today, and in fact, we have so much that we're going to provide this to you. We're going to talk with Chairman Brad Buckley, Chairman of the Texas House Committee on Public Education. We'll also want to talk about STEM education because we have many TXOGA companies that are investing heavily in the success of this generation of students to get them prepared. And, engineering and math always kind of made me run backwards a little bit in school.
Not my strong suit either.
But we know that if we're going to have a competitive state and nation with the rest of this world, these complex issues have to be broken down to where our students see that vision early on. And we're excited to be talking about that during the next couple of episodes of TXOGA Talks.
Yeah, it'll be great. We have just so much, we can't pack it in one episode.
That's right.
So let's start. What does STEM stand for? This is a test. We're already starting a test. It's a public education episode. Let's talk about it. STEM.
Well, fortunately, I have done my homework today. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And these fields really are the backbone of innovation in our energy sector. From the development of new technologies that make energy production more efficient to engineering solutions that help us reduce our impact on the environment, STEM is at the heart of it all.
And the young minds that are inspired today will lead the way for solving the challenges that we face. And you see that through the innovation in our industry. But it's interesting, at my son's school, they have a STEM class. They start with Legos and move on to robotics. So you can kind of see the building blocks there just in one school. He comes home, he said, I had STEM today and I did Legos.
In schools, isn't that great how they're
Yes.
capturing his imagination? I toured a school in Texarkana years ago, and it was so great because they had plexiglass instead of sheetrock on part of the walls, so kids could see the wiring behind it.
Wow,
they could see
awesome.
the plumbing system. And A wasn't for Apple; it was Atom.
Love that.
B was for beaker. C, chemistry. I mean, that was instead of the traditional things that we use, and so it really captured their imagination. And our TXOGA member companies are working to capture the imagination of our students all across Texas and really throughout the globe. They're not just focused on today's business challenges. They're looking ahead, ensuring that the next generation of engineers, scientists, and technicians are ready to take the helm. I'm excited that TXOGA is something that you're a big part of, is Energy Elevated, is showcasing new technologies.
That's right.
And I think that's something that we need to introduce to the students to see how this translates into the business world. And our companies are doing partnerships with schools and universities and community organizations, making a tangible difference in our students' lives.
That's right. We're building a network of educational opportunities for the greater good of our state.
That's right.
It's great.
That's right. We're going to talk about some funding and some roles that the oil and gas industry plays with Chairman Buckley when we bring him on for the part of the show. And I know that this funding is crucial to making the wheels of public education turn.
That's right. So we put out our EEIR, which is our Energy and Economic Impact Report. We have an episode. If you want to go back and listen to the full report, you can do that here. But in 2023, the Texas oil and natural gas companies contributed a record-breaking $26.3 billion to state and local taxes and state royalties. And of this, $2.81 billion went directly to Texas Independent School Districts.
A lot of money. We're talking billions here, folks, with
That's
a
right.
B. And it's important because our schools are very valuable, and we're going to get into these numbers even more in depth with Chairman Buckley. I want us to start out looking at an overview of Texas oil and gas companies we work with some really smart people every single day. We're very fortunate that our membership is responsible for producing over 90% of our state's crude oil. They operate a vast majority of our state's pipelines. They are responsible for a great majority of our state's refining capacity. And so let's start taking up a few of these companies and highlighting some of the work that they're doing, Shana.
So ExxonMobil, everyone knows that company. It has long been recognized for the importance of education, and particularly in the STEM fields. And since 2000, ExxonMobil and the ExxonMobil Foundation have invested an astounding $1.6 billion in support of education across the globe.
You know, that's a real commitment, and I believe that this is embedded in the company's DNA. They understand that STEM education is vital for cultivating the next generation of engineers, scientists, and innovators who are really going to drive our industry and our state and our world forward. And it's through these types of partnerships with local educators and universities and other academic leaders that they're working to address the STEM education gap and grow the STEM talent pipeline. They're focusing on ensuring all students have access to high-quality teachers and educational resources. And Shana, they have a new collaboration with the Khan Academy, and I think it's a perfect example of that partnership and what can be delivered.
That's right. So the ExxonMobil Foundation has invested $17 million in collaboration with the Khan Academy, and they have a program called the Open Doors Project. So the project creates free math and science courses for students and teachers, and it is aligned with the Texas education standards. And while it's a big investment for the state of Texas, the content is available for learners across the globe. So we're expanding beyond just our state and opening those doors elsewhere.
Texas leads the way, right?
Absolutely, always. We always do. And so this is the first time Khan Academy is now offering teacher modules as well.
And these modules actually empower educators to better understand the STEM curriculum that they teach. It improves teacher confidence, and it results in student outcomes that we all want to see, these high level of outcomes. The initial round of student and teacher courses were launched in June, with more courses rolling out in the summers of 2025 and 2026. The ExxonMobil Foundation is also working with Khan Academy to provide additional support to schools in the Houston area, the Permian Basin, and along the U.S. Gulf Coast.
All those oil and natural gas rich areas, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. That's what fuels our entire economy and makes our lives better. I'm glad to see Diamondback Energy is another one of our companies that's taken a hands-on approach, Shana, to supporting STEM education, particularly within the communities in which they operate. Diamondback recognizes the importance of developing a skilled workforce that's prepared to meet the challenges of the future, and they've committed significant resources to educational initiatives both at the high school and the college levels.
So one of their programs is really cool. It's a tutoring and mentorship initiative that they've established within the Midland High's robotics team. And so this program has proven to be a game changer. It helps the robotics team achieve state championship status. That's something to brag about, right?
Absolutely. We all want that championship level.
That's right. And so it's a testament to the impact on the personalized support. So you have these engineers working with the robotics students and learning and crafting and all of that. And so it's not just about winning competitions, although we like to win. It's also about growing that love of STEM and cultivating that in these kids' lives. So hopefully they go out and have that STEM career.
That's what we want, is successful students and successful families. And Diamondback's commitment here extends beyond robotics in their investment in public education. They've also provided micro grants through the Midland Education Foundation, supporting a range of STEM-related activities and initiatives within the community. We have several TXOGA member companies that I want to highlight, but I think it's important that we take a little break. And when we come back, I want to welcome Dr. Brad Buckley to the conversation so that we can hear, as we learn about these STEM activities, let's learn a little bit about what's happening in the Texas education system. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks to a partnership between TXOGA and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, now more than ever, it's easy for small businesses to provide affordable group health coverage for their employees through the TXOGA healthcare plan. With a TXOGA plan, members can choose the right healthcare plan and benefits for them, priced within their budget, with the physicians and providers they trust. TXOGA's healthcare plan is available to small businesses with between 2 and 50 total employees who are headquartered in Texas, members of TXOGA, and aligned to the Texas oil and natural gas industry. If your organization is not enrolled but looking for coverage, visit bcbstx.com/TXOGA. I'll say that again. Visit bcbstx.com/TXOGA to learn more. Visit today.
Today's episode is sponsored by TXOGA member company, Diamondback Energy, a Texas-based independent oil and natural gas company. Diamondback is focused on the acquisition, development, exploration, and exploitation of unconventional onshore oil and natural gas reserves in the Permian Basin in West Texas. At Diamondback, business success is achieved through disciplined commitment to a culture of excellence, efficiency, and low-cost structure, as well as a commitment to doing business in the right way, focused on integrity, leadership, excellence, people, and teamwork. To learn more about Diamondback, visit their website at diamondbackenergy.com.
We're thrilled to have with us today a very special guest, Brad Buckley, Chairman of the Texas House Public Education Committee. Chairman Buckley, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Well, absolutely. You represent a portion of Central Texas, House District 54, isn't that right?
That is correct. I represent about half of Bell County.
Okay. And the population of that in your House District is roughly what?
About 189,000.
And growing, I guess.
Growing every single day.
That's good. That's good news. How many school districts do you have in your particular House District?
There are 12, and then there's some partials as well. Some that from other counties that sort of come over the line, but 12 direct districts.
And then parts of others.
And parts of others, yes.
And Shana, Chairman Buckley actually served on a school board before he was elected to the state legislature.
And I think that's really good qualifications for being chair of this important committee. That is the buzz of most of the state, most of the time right now.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Serving on the school board in Killeen ISD was a great place to really kind of learn how government works. It was I always thought
government works.
Well, it worked, yeah. yeah. I guess it used to work, no, it's it was a great time for me to really learn about the issues involving schools. What I liked about it was where you would have different opinions, but in the end you'd come together because you had to start school, and you had to solve problems, and really probably the biggest benefit were some of my fellow board members that I was privileged to serve with. Unbelievable leaders in our community that were very successful in their own right, but then spent a lot of time in service to the school district. And they're still very, very good friends of mine. And I still call them today, when I'm a little worried about things going off the rails. They're still
good sounding board.
They're very good sounding, and they're very honest, which is
you need honest friends.
You do,
need honest friends.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about public education, if you're parents and you've put your kids in our public education system, you know what your kids are coming home with. So those opinions are very important, and I know y'all work hard to ensure that parents' voices are heard in this process.
Yeah, I think it's always been important, and for years it seemed like that we had all sorts of parental engagement movements to try to get parents involved, and we're in a moment now where parents are very involved, and it's been very important to us, at least on my committee, and really in the Senate as well, is to make sure that parents' voices are heard. School works better when our parents are partners with our schools.
That's right.
And
I think the real problem arises when parents aren't involved and they send their kids to school, and schools are not only asked to educate our kids, they're asked to raise them, and that's not the role of schools.
That's exactly right. I told some folks the other day, I said, if you send your kids to school for the schools to raise them, don't be surprised when they do.
Yeah.
And so I think I think what we're in now is a moment post-COVID where parents were able to sort of have a firsthand seat to what was what was being taught in our schools, and some parents were taken aback. Certainly wasn't everywhere. It wasn't all over Bell County for sure, but in some areas. And then I call it sort of a parental awakening, where parents said, I'm not sure if that matches my values. I'm not sure I understand it. My wife is a 31-year professional educator.
Susan's great. That's awesome.
She works very, very hard. And my mother taught school and was an early childhood specialist for 38 years. My grandma taught first grade, literally a first grade teacher for 42 years. And my grandfather was a math teacher, principal, head football coach.
The Buckley family's kind of got a lot. You got a good pedigree. Speaking of pedigree, you're in cutting horse business.
I am.
I've got to get that in.
Yeah.
That for those of you that hadn't followed Dr. Buckley, he is a veterinarian.
That's
He's been
right.
practicing in Killeen for
31 years.
Got it figured out. Taking care of people's horses and small animals.
We are. Yeah, I'm a horse nut.
So tell us real quick about the cutting horse.
Of course, that's all I ever wanted when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Had a little family ranch, and it was, it's expensive, and always had horses, but they were using horses, and when I was finally able to have a competition horse, used to drive my dad crazy. It's like, you got this competition cow horse, but he stays in a stall on an air mattress, and don't take him outside where he can slip and hurt himself. But man, they sure look good in Will Rogers Coliseum, even though you can't hardly ride them to the trailer without spooking at something. But I think the Western lifestyle and the Western heritage in Texas is just really important to me and to my family, and it's something I just love. I just love a horse.
I want to come see your horse in competition.
Got a good one this year, but I said that last year too, and it didn't work out.
Well, it's kind of like my football team.
Well,
I don't want to keep this at a high level right now. The season's early. So.
That's right. So we will. We'll just be optimistic.
That's right.
And not how you start, it's how you finish.
There you go.
But we better start finishing pretty quick.
I like that glass full approach.
That's right.
There.
That's right. Well, we want to get into some issues involving public education. The oil and gas community are big believers in a strong education system. Brad, our companies invest heavily with schools, with colleges and universities, STEM training. Shane and I have talked a good bit about the program already today about that. And thinking about as our state continues to navigate the landscape of an evolving education system, we want to explore challenges with you today and just see how all this aligns in the work that you do.
Yeah, I think it's important that, when I think about the ultimate goal of kind of what I'm working on and what, members of the House are working on in terms of education, it's about, are our kids prepared for that next step? And the reality is there are some really great opportunities for kids there, in STEM. And other pathways, but the reality is we don't have enough kids going down that route. There's lots of things to do in this world, but we need more kids involved in that. And so what you'll see across Texas are in larger districts that are typically in urban or suburban areas. You'll see real strong programs because they're connected to employers in the community.
Key, right?
And they're connected to higher education that's often there. Mm-hmm. And that's really key because that sort of drives that. But in rural Texas, it's just as important. And I would offer, for me, I think rural Texas really is the home of our Texas values. And we have to have a strong rural Texas. And if we don't have quality programs that really match the moment in our workforce in rural Texas, we will see a decline in the number of folks that live there. And so, we're always focused on making sure that our rural school districts have those partnerships that they can utilize. If you're a small district, 50, 60 miles away from the next school district, sometimes, your student count doesn't really, it doesn't work to have some of the more advanced STEM programs. But what you see in a lot of areas is the districts are partnering with each other. And they're saying, all right, we'll do this and you'll do that, and we'll figure out a way to get the kids there. And you know what? When you do it, they'll show up.
Isn't that a smart way to utilize our resources, to have those partnerships? Yeah. I remember touring schools in the Texarkana area, and one school district was the food service administrator for like 6 or 7 surrounding districts as a way to create efficiencies, and they did that voluntarily. Yeah. There's a lot of districts in Texas.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at that. So can you tell us how many students are currently enrolled in Texas public schools?
There's about 5.5 million kids.
And how many ISDs?
There's roughly 1,200.
1,200. And you said you had about 12 and then a few other like half districts in yours.
And you have districts that have well over 180,000 kids down to, I was at a meeting the other day with some rural superintendents, and one of the superintendents had 30 kids.
30 kids.
So you think about that.
In the whole district.
In the whole district.
And the whole district. Wow.
Yeah. And very, obviously, very
Sure.
rural.
Sure.
And there were no other options. There's another district that basically serves children of park employees.
Oh, wow.
Out near Big Bend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And, they want to live there and they want to work there. They have kids. Kids have to go to school. So
That's
there's
right.
another district that does that.
Texas is a big state, is very unique in geography and in population. And, oil and gas is produced in mainly rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
And we need that workforce. We need that training to occur so that we can continue to be the backbone of our state's economy.
Well, it is. I mean, Texas oil and gas is, if you just think about, the revenue that flows from a robust oil and gas industry, obviously the direct jobs that are created, but also just the impact on education, it's huge. And so it's important that we understand that, especially in a time where I think that there are more people that are trying to look elsewhere than this incredible resource we have under the ground in this great state. I think it's important to understand. I think the impact it has on our quality of life, the cost of living, if you will, but also on the fact that it is a huge industry that really helps us educate our kids.
In fact, Shane, I bet you have some numbers about direct contributions from this last fiscal year. The big number is $26.3 billion in state and local taxes and state royalties, but directly for individual school districts from property taxes, I think that number was about $2.7 billion. And then the permanent school fund and the permanent university fund is about $1.8 billion directly each. And that doesn't count the rainy day fund that retired teachers benefit. Y'all appropriated dollars out of there. So those are some big dollars, no doubt about it. I want to go back. I think last session you worked on a bill that dealt with high quality instructional materials, and I kind of talk to us about that. What bill was that? If people want to look at it.
House Bill 1605.
Okay.
And I carried the bill in the House, and then Senator Creighton had it in the Senate, and it was an important bill that really, after taking a look at where kids are in Texas in terms of their academic achievement, we realized that we ask our teachers to do everything, to teach the talented and gifted, and to teach the struggling, and do it all at the same time.
And that's hard.
And that's very difficult. You go in a classroom today, and I promise you, they work a heck of a lot harder than I do. And I go to a lot of classrooms, and I'm always taken by the fact of just how hard they work. And that, kids come to school where they are. Some come from a background where they've been read to, and you're certain they did their homework the night before, and if they needed a tutor, they had a tutor. Others come to our schools, and they're at home, they're living in chaos. Mm-hmm. And we just tell our classroom teachers, all right, here they are. And they gladly do that. But what we found, that because of that, we found that too many lessons that were being taught in our classrooms were at below grade level. And so in an effort to sort of reach back and bring those that are behind along, the grade level appropriateness of the lesson was declining. As a matter of fact, we found only about 19% of lessons in the classrooms were being taught on grade level. This was not 20%. That's right. It was not an intentional thing.
Number. Yeah.
Yeah, but we drifted that way, and it had to do with the materials. Mm-hmm. And because too many of the materials that schools districts had adopted did not include the standards of which the State Board of Education had approved to be taught. And so teachers were having to go outside of their own curriculum on the weekends, try to find it on Pinterest or Google, and try to piece these things together. And here's really the thing, what I think is so important about high quality instructional materials, is back when I was in school a long time ago, And when you were in school,
even
long
longer
time
ago, we won't get
Yeah.
into that.
I think about my teachers, and most of them, I bet they had 15, 16, 17, 20 years of experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now the average tenure and experience level of a Texas teacher is 5 years or below.
Wow.
And so they need a high quality curriculum that really contains those standards, but also does a lot of the design for them, so they can learn to be an outstanding deliverer of lessons and not have to be a lesson designer first rattle out of the box. Now, as they progress in their career, they can do that.
Sure.
And that's what HQIM, or high quality instructional materials, will do.
That's awesome. Also, we were chatting briefly before we started our conversation today, and we talked about the budget and how much money goes into education from the state budget. So can you talk a little bit about that number for our listeners? And then can you tell us a few of the priorities and how they align with long-term goals for Texas in your vision?
Yeah, well, just like everything else in the world right now, whether it be operating TXOGA or operating R-Killeen Veterinary Clinic, it costs a heck of a lot more to do it today than it did 4 years ago.
Inflation has been a staggering impact on families and budgets of every entity.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at a school district, the diesel in the buses, to the cost of electricity and insurance, and everything else that they purchase, and school districts in most communities are also a big business. It takes a lot to operate, and so they've been hit by the impacts of inflation, just like every family and every business in Texas. And so it's important to know that over time that they need additional funding, and that can come in numerous ways. One of the things we've tried to do was raise the basic allotment. We didn't get that done. That's just the base. No kid really or student is funded at that level, but that's kind of the basic multiplier.
So the basic allotment is where each district gets an allotment on a per student basis, and that's just the baseline, and then you add on to it for different factors.
Yeah, there's different multipliers.
Okay.
And so if it's career and technology student or course or special education or compensatory ed, what we call comp ed, all that's on there. And in general, you're going to spend, overall in Texas about $14,200, I believe, per student. But that includes INS, which is your voter approved debt or bonds.
Okay.
So that's included in that number. But overall, probably instructional, maintenance and operation, excluding INS, it's $12,000 or so across the state.
So a lot of people today think that education may not be the priority of our state government. When you look, our spending usually tells us where our priorities are. What is the biggest budget area of expense and funding in the Texas state budget today?
Education.
Education remains the biggest.
Yeah. Okay. And so, it's one of the things we are, constitutionally required to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have to fund enrollment growth. And, one of the things that I'm concerned about is when you look at the sort of the birth rate in Texas, it's flattening.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we sort of project out and look at the number of kids that will be showing up in Texas schools, that number very well is flat or could start to decline. And we need to be ready for that. And you also have certain districts across the state that have a decline in enrollment. And there's lots of reasons for that. But it can be property, how expensive it is to live in that school district, where it makes it difficult for young families. It can be some areas where folks are kind of moving away from a larger community because there's so much remote work now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing that. So we have to look at, and we're always project out trying to see how many kids will we have for the future. And right now it's certainly flat to declining.
And you said earlier, I think 5.5 million is the state's population for public education.
That's right. There's about 6 million school-age kids. 5.5 million in public schools and 280,000 in private. And homeschool is a little harder to get a handle on, but we say probably anywhere from maybe 600 to 700,000. And so
I like hearing what you're doing in terms of looking for programs that help teachers, knowing that it's kind of unfair to be a teacher and have, some kids, their parents are helping their children be prepared for school, and then others, parents are just not even in the picture. So it makes it tough on our teachers. So it's good to hear about these programs that help.
One of the things I really want to highlight is what's called the teacher incentive allotment. And that is a merit-based system that was passed in 2019 that is now up and running in probably nearly half the school districts, maybe a little over half the school districts in Texas. And it is basically based on a school district will come up with a metric to measure student performance in a given classroom. And then there's 3 levels of achievement a teacher can receive based on how much their kids grow, what their overall achievement levels are. And then a teacher right now can receive a bonus probably anywhere between $4,000 and $16,000, $17,000
that's real money.
a year.
Yeah,
it's real money. And the idea is we want to get more teachers into that 6-figure salary range, and you want to keep your best in the classroom.
Yeah.
Our system now kind of rewards the great teachers that leave for administration,
right?
Because that's kind of a normal human thing, right? To want to go up financial ladder. But one of the things we want to do is continue to strengthen that, put more money into it, and even create other designations where we can really reward the best and the brightest, because I believe that creates a great culture in a school where you have everyone striving to try to be one of those teachers awarded that.
Well, having community buy-in, having parental buy-in, understanding the partnership is so important for our children's education. I'm excited to see the business community staying fully engaged in our educational outcomes. STEM programs, and that stands for
Science,
technology, engineering, and math.
See, the social sciences are kind of what I focused on in college here. So the STEM, but STEM is so important when you look at the complex systems for, like you mentioned, electricity costs are going up.
Yeah.
There's a complex system to provide electricity to the end user. To produce oil and gas in rural parts of Texas and refine that into the products that are 96% of the products that we use on a daily basis requires a high level of training. These topics are so interesting that we're going to have to break it into 2 parts and be able to cover it all in depth where it'll have meaning for our listeners. So thank you so much for joining TXOGA Talks Part 1 with Chairman Brad Buckley and our overview of STEM education. And join us for Part 2 of STEM education and public education with State Representative Brad Buckley.
The views expressed on this podcast are not intended and should not be construed to be the views of any particular TXOGA member or company. The purpose of this podcast is to engage in candid conversations about energy needs, energy security, and the future of energy.